Hello and welcome back to PA Chalk Up. I'm your host Manny, and today we have Filippo. Hi Filippo, how are we doing?
Good, Manny. Thanks for having me, and hi to everyone who's listening.
Perfect. Before we get going, I would like to know how you got started in this industry and how that sort of progressed to where you are now.
Yeah. So I would say it's now a long run ish, let's say. So I started in 2015. Basically, I was studying my BSc in sports science and strength and conditioning, which is like a quite an hybrid mix, but is quite normal in Italy. So I was studying that. My background, so I did a lot of sports in general during my life, especially during my childhood, but never been like great athletes. So that leads me to experiment and try like a lot of sports. When I was around 16, yeah, I started playing rugby for a bit. I played until I was 21, 22. I broke my shoulder. In the meantime, how I just said, I was studying my BSc and I decided to quit just playing rugby because the effort was too much with little or none reward, to be honest. And I decided to start my career in SNC with an internship at Rugby Mogliano at the time. I did my internship with this is a semi-pro team, I would say. Rugby Mogliano plays in the top Italian championship, and yeah, I started there. I did my internship for 3 months during the summertime, working with the senior team, help out like as a normal SNC guy. And at the end of the pre-season, my former mentor and good friend Giorgio D'Alozzo, that at the time was the head of performance at Mogliano, he asked me to join, and I basically started in September with my first formal role as SNC for the junior team, so under 14 and 16 at the time. Basically, I worked as a junior SNC and assisting the first team between the 2015 and 2018. And then, like, I did my BSc, I was doing my master's, finishing off my master's in SNC, and Mogliano asked me to take the role as a head of performance for the season 2018 and 2019. I did that, and then, long story short, another opportunity came up as an intern for Harlequins during the season 2019-2020. So I joined Harlequins, did my internship there with them. I got back home due to COVID in 2020, pandemic, restart in Verona with this semi-pro team. Spent 3 years in Verona Rugby, working as a head of performance, so working with the senior team and all the academy. And then back to Queens into 2023, because at the time, I'm still got the connection, and because I'm working now here, thanks to the connection that I created during the internship, I was able to get the job. I went through, obviously, interview, blah, 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 and everything like that. So I got this job, which is strength and conditioning coach for the first team, for the senior team, and that's it. And I just finished an amazing experience with England under 20 during the World Cup back in Italy, the World Cup, and yeah, that was great. And the past few months has been like an amazing time.
100%. I've been able to watch and follow along, and it did look amazing. It looked hot. It looked very hot.
Yeah, it was. I would say that's what I said to the guys every single time they asked me. Like, it was hot for them, really warm and hot for them. Genuine for me, I was finally warming up, especially once. And you know better than me, like once you leave in UK for a little bit too long, then you go back in a warmer place, you say, oh, this is what I need. I need to warm it up a little bit more. So yeah, that's what I normally said to them.
100%. And what gets you fired up right now in SNC and then your role?
Right. As I normally describe myself, especially with the students on ETSCS, other things that I didn't said, I'm one of the lecturer for ETSCS. ETSCS is an Italian private company that creates CPD and masters or postgraduate certification, we say, for SNC coaches. We started probably 2 years ago now with the Masters in SNC, and we now last year we've done the first year of the sports science Masters. We're now moving into the second year, so we're starting with the new one in September, October. So back again with that, how I describe myself sometimes is like I'm a very hybrid. I'm in a hybrid role because I love doing the SNC, but I'm quite nerdy, would say. So I always, like, in my background, I always had this passion around data, maths, stats, let's say. I got into a lot with GPS, dashboard, Excels, Power BI, everything like that. So for this reason, I'm quite a good mix between the both worlds, and that's why I describe myself like a really hybrid role. I love tech in general. I'm trying to deliver every single time new project inside with Queens. So at the moment, just because you asked, at the moment I'm doing a project, on-site project with Queens around Nordic hamstring exercises. We're working around regression and progression, working with NodeBoard, so VALD NodeBoard, but also working with another machine which is called Hamcell. This machine has been created by Tobias Halt, who is a PhD doctorate, but also he's a SNC and sports science as the German Olympic Committee for winter sports, especially skeletons and bobsledding. He also works around the athletic for Germany, for the Germany team, and thanks for his PhD and the research that he published. There's another way to look around the Nordic hamstring exercises, which I'm not going to say is the best exercise for preventing injuries because I don't believe in that, but I do believe that is a piece of the puzzles for performance, injury reduction. And I want to dive more into that, especially working around normative data for professional players. And so what I'm doing at the moment, I'm collecting data since 2 seasons ago, and I'm running stats. I'm running project around this with the NodeBoard and other stuff. I learned like a good basic knowledge of coding with Python, so to get into more in depth of this kind of stuff. And that's what is firing me up at the moment, the SNC word or sports science word.
Nice. So a couple of things that I kind of want to bring back and touch on. With
Please.
the Nordic exercises, you kind of mentioned that it might not be the best for preventing or mitigating injuries. So what is it that you are specifically looking at, and what's important for you to analyze in that specific exercise?
Yeah. So background, as everyone I would say, but in general, so Nordic hamstring has always been put it as the best remedial for hamstring injury. There's a lot of controversy and different papers and systematic review that say the opposite, which I agree with some of them. Basically, in general, we can describe Nordic hamstring exercise, so all the spectrum, progression and regression, as exercise that can potentially work around more the distal part of your hamstring, so working more on the knee flexors part of the Nordic hamstring, of the hamstrings muscle. Sorry, but because I'm continuing reading and because I read a lot of these research from Tobias Halt, what came up is once we do Nordic hamstring, we're normally doing on a flat surface with the knee onto the ground and working around just continuing the tension or try to resist under the tension of your body, resisting on the eccentric part. Basically, what came up from different of his research is how we set up the Nordic makes a lot of difference. And what I mean about it, so angles is the first big difference the first big change that you can apply to your normal settings. A study has shown that you got a range between, let's say, -5 degree to up to 36 degree, in which obviously the shin angles change. So through this variation, you got different muscle activation. So it's not just the bicep femoris that you're targeting, but you can also target the semitendinosus or semimembranosus through the different shear angles, and obviously making more difficult or less challenging through the range spectrum. So obviously, if you go up to 36 degree, you got more range of motion and less fatigueness, less momentum, let's say. If you go down to -5 degree, you are activating a little bit more the medial part of your hamstring, but is also more challenging because you're on a decline position. So your body weight more, let's say. And this is the first thing. The second one is the force compression, the compression force that you got once you perform a normal Nordic hamstring. So if you imagine that you got your knee on a hard surface, and then you try to move forward like that, what came up is the compression force on the knee are exponentially higher every single time you go down. So what Tobias found out is removing pressure from the knee and free the patella, so the knee pad, up to the shin tuberosities, potentially decrease the force compression on the knee joint, but also you got like a larger muscle activation through EMG. Data hasn't been released yet, but doing a PhD study at the moment at Leeds Beckett University around that. So it's been shown that electromyography through the proximal and the distal part are higher. Force production is even higher. So you got more muscle activation, more force production, just releasing pressure from your knee, and this leads to a higher standard which we can work through. And especially in rugby players, what I'm seeing at the moment with like the data that I'm collecting, we are just finding out that we are now able to produce enough force to simulate the same amount of force that you can produce during sprinting, which is around 9 Newton per kilos per leg. Obviously, I'm not saying that Nordic hamstring will replace or is going to be better than sprinting, because it's not what it is. But having this solution or this changing on your setup will potentially expose your muscle to the same amount of force that you can potentially produce during a max sprint, if it makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. And are you exposing, like on the other side of the program and not this research stuff, are you exposing them to like more hip dominant movements? And then obviously with your Nordics, you're focusing on that knee dominant.
Yeah, because this is the other story. So like as I said at the start, the Nordic hamstring is just a piece of the puzzle. It's not everything. And so we also work around normal RDL, B-stance RDL, any hip extension like 45-degree hip extension overloaded, good mornings. So any kind of other variation that is normally in the weight room, yes, we do it. We also do any kind of variation that works around the Nordic, like say the Harop curl, the GHD extension, let's say, or single leg isometrics like a Bosch hold, all that kind of stuff. Like I said, take all part in our, I don't want to say like that because it's not the level that we use and we normally don't use a level, but let's call it like a bulletproof program for hamstrings, which is that.
Yeah, so you're working on the whole posterior chain as opposed to just the one movement.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is.
2 questions off the back of that. Are you talking about like, so with the exposure to different angles, are you physically like slanting the floor or like putting them on a box or something that will make them sort of like do a Nordic with a deeper stretch?
So obviously if you go decline, you got more compression, let's say. So it's just more difficult to generate force, let's say, in this way. So you need to be able to control your body weight since the start. Instead on like a parallel to the floor, you normally got 0 force production because you can land on that. And then if you go up, you decrease the amount of force as the start, let's say. The idea is more like every single time that I think about it, it's like more like once you wear your weightlifting shoes and once you're barefoot, it's exactly the same. But you actually also add the recline version, so you potentially go toes up instead of heels up. That's the thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. What's the sort of results on the break-in force when they are sprinting off the back of this protocol?
We are not sure yet. We don't want, or for now, we are not able to have any kind of correlation at the moment. But it's something that we are working towards to. At the moment, what we can say is this is a kind of exposure that can say, like, potentially is a safer exposure for the same force amount production, let's say.
Like mitigate with less effort, essentially.
Exactly. Correct.
Yeah.
So we also believe in that what we do every single week in the speed vaccine. So we normally expose our players to 90% and more at least once per week. So we truly believe that sprinting at least over 90% can produce and can reduce the likelihood of injury. So yeah, it all takes part to the same process, I would say. And obviously we also consider their speed mechanics because we got like a speed specialist, which is James Wild, very well known for his studies around speed. So we got, I would say, probably sometimes even too much data. Now we need to get like decrease the noise, take out the noise, and try to collect the signal. So what we really want to achieve with those data.
Yeah, so this is an interesting story. So last December, I did a webinar with Thomas Newman, Tofi Zimnicki, and Missy Mr. Macbeth. Thomas Newman spoke about, so he also worked for Hawken. So he's got the data background from platforms and stuff like that. And that's something that he often talks about is like coaches today are collecting too much data and sort of getting lost in this noise. Like, what is specific for that session, that periodization block, whatever you want to call it. So he has this thing where if you're on a force platform and you don't know what to look at, just pick two metrics and get to know them really well and what they mean for performance. And then I've sort of been talking about as well, so like obviously different phases require different exposures, right? So preseason you're wanting to build explosive strength, speed, a little bit of size if they need it. And then preseason is about more maintaining and keeping what you have. So it's like, can we then look at two different metrics for each period? So like in off season, it's kind of like what we spoke about at the beginning of the podcast. Well, when we were in the lobby, it's like I will look for metrics on platforms while we build, and then I'll look at two different metrics when we're maintaining, or same again when we're wanting to be explosive, and then control that eccentrics. Like those will be two different metrics as well, and it's having the confidence to just pick two and really explore.
Yeah, 100%. And I think this comes from experience, I would say, like in general, for like a specific topic or like a broad experience in general. So being part of the SNC / sports science world for longer, and then you genuinely know and understand what metrics you want to pick, what project you want to pick, what is really the best rationale behind something and something else. And I think sometimes, like, especially I'm feeling old when I say that, but especially the young generation, so the generation that are coming through now as a S&C coach are really into this fancy stuff, I will call it, like the new tech that do this because do that, and sometimes we need to just get back to basic, re-understand what the basic is, and then you can develop, and then you can go into this new fancy stuff that you want to try, but be aware of all the rationale that has been created before. So like everything.
So I've done a couple podcasts for different people, and that's one question that I get asked a lot is what's the difference between US coaching and European coaching? So I personally believe that the biggest difference is the US are very coach relationship with the athlete centric. They're very much about their coaching, their principles, their philosophies. Not all of them will love data. They'll collect it to have, but not all of them will be like, oh yeah, we need to get jump performance here, we need to get VBTs here. But Europeans are really good at collecting data and having data and understanding data. So it's like these two polar opposites where one's really focusing on the coaching ability, the relationships, but the other one's like, I just want data. Let's data. So I feel like I'm very fortunate having experienced both, because then I can speak about both. So it's about like stuff like the coach eye. How many young coaches now don't know what that is or don't know what they're looking for?
Yeah.
A lot. And it's that thing where we kind of need to sort of mesh each side of the world and be like, okay, you're really good, let me learn from you. Or you're really good at data, let me learn from you too. This is a quick shout out to our main sponsor on this channel, TeamBuildr. TeamBuildr is an all-in-one platform that hosts programs, questionnaires, testing, anything that you may need for your athlete's performance, you can host it in TeamBuildr. TeamBuildr also now has two different sides, which is OS and practice. For more information on TeamBuildr, check out the link in the description. And if you use code PACHOCKUP all together, you will get a 30-day free trial. Our next sponsor is Apex Cool Labs. Apex Cool Labs is a palm cooling device that helps you gain further performance by cooling and aids the recovery so you can perform more for longer. To check out what Apex Cool Labs have, there's a link in the description.
And I completely agree with that. And once you were saying this, just came through my mind two books that I always take with me in some way. Like I got in my library, and the one is the one from Brett Bartholomew,
Conscious Coaching.
Conscious Coaching, and the other one now. I got the title, which is The Intent is to Grow. I don't remember the name of the author, but both of them exactly express what you were saying about the American side of the coaching stuff and what potentially we as a European need to get more out of that, like actually understand how to coach, when coach, what we need to do, and then understand the person that you got in front of you, all the emotions, all the kind of like the different psychological behavior that they got, and interact with them as a very broad spectrum of like multiple input and output that you can receive.
It's kind of like what we were speaking about in the lobby. It's you're not coaching lab rats. You're coaching real humans with the real emotions. And you can't base your sessions on... Well, you can't solely base your sessions on how you think or how you want them to come in. Like, if they had a fight with their family, they're probably not going to want to back squat 250. That's just what it is.
Exactly. And I think that... So this is a good point. So, and especially, like, what my background, what my story always taught me or like remember me sometimes is like coming through the amateur / semi-pro environment, you genuinely understand this kind of thing. So you're not dealing always with professional athletes, but once you get into the professional environment, this is your probably like the way how you can get the most out of the professional athletes, because you don't see them as a lab rat, as you said, but you generally see them as a person. So you get like a better understanding of their behavior, what's outside their job, because it's a job at the end of the day, and they got loads of stress, so lots of pressure around them. So we need to put first the person, sometimes the people, and then get a better understanding of the athletes, and everything is a collecting part of that.
I think a big part of being a great coach is having either general population experience or working in a private gym where your pay is solely based on how you communicate with people.
Yeah. 100%. And don't get me wrong, sometimes you can get frustrating because you pass from being like a PT / SNC to a psychologist. Yeah, that is the kind of experience that sometimes the younger generation needs to get before. Like, it's not always like say, oh, I will love to work for, I don't know, Chelsea. Okay, yeah, I know that you will love to work with senior team at Chelsea, but first you need to experience what else exists in the world.
So I've just finished recording an episode with Donnie Mabe, who is the Olympic coach at Texas Longhorns.
Yeah.
And he said this brilliant line. It's like, currently everyone's focusing on having that big title, having that Chelsea, Manchester, Arsenal, Man City, English top tier rugby, whatever the big club for your specific sport is. But when you're new, you're not going to get that. Like, you're not going to get the head coach for them. So you need to treat the role that you are in as if it was that. Because then you've got that thing of like, I've always said this, like, I don't care what level I'm coaching at, you are all getting treated as professional athletes. It's just 100%. The mentality that I have. It's just one of my non-negotiables.
100%.
I will treat you like an elite athlete. You will treat me like an elite coach. I will earn it, and we always have expectations. I will set your expectations, and you set my expectations. And then like, that's how I start every year.
Yeah, 100%. And then that's, I think, why I came up with the Intent is to Grow book, because that exactly reverse a little bit the view. So it's not just on the athlete, but also as a S&C coach, how I can deliver my job. And that's exactly what you said. Like, sometimes we want, and especially because like nowadays, in the past, I would say, what is now probably 10 years that Instagram and this all social network came out, like, or not came out, but they exploded and become like a sort of way for showing you off sometimes.
Yep.
So then you want to have that job title, then you want to have that logo on your chest and everything like that. But sometimes you are missing the funny stuff that you can actually get from an amateur, semi-pro, or like junior teams. Like, first of all, you can experiment a lot, like practically,
yep.
On the weight rooms outside, like let's say speed, conditioning, whatever. You build up relationship. You generally build up relationship with people. There's people that cares about you. It obviously depends how much you care about your job and how you want to deliver. But as you said, if I treat my amateur rugby team as a professional one, I'm 100% sure that those athletes will treat me as a professional S&C coach, because I give them my 100%. And I will give my 100% because I care about my job and I care about the people that I got in front of me. Yeah, 100%.
So I also think that it might be good for us to explain what we mean by that. And I'll kick it off. So a big thing for me is, and this is what I learned at Division 1 American football level, where we have 130 odd athletes come in through our door, and we have 45 minutes in the weight room. We have then an hour outside, then we're back in the weight room, and then we have like workshops to do CPD, and then we can go home or we can stay and do a little bit extra. So what we did is we prepared the weight room for the session the night before, right? So that's not always doable in public gyms or in private facilities, but you can set up at least 30 minutes beforehand, so that when the athletes come in, everything's set and they're already in that thing of like, okay, I am here, I need to go, right? So as soon as they walk in, they see all the stations, everything's written on the whiteboard. This is the session, run down through the session, go. 45 minutes, session over, grab yourself a drink, grab yourself a snack, protein, whatever you want, you're now done. So it's kind of having that thing of like, as soon as they walk in, the professionalism starts. So weight room set. Hi, how are you doing? How was your night? Did you drink? Did you eat? I personally, when I'm getting to know athletes, I have a question of the week. So it's like, what's your favorite ice cream? What's your favorite pizza topping? And then the questions kind of go a little bit more in depth as we get to know each other. If you were stuck on an island, what's 3 things that you would bring? And then that opens relationships, and that opens this ability to connect with your athletes that hey, I thought you wanted to be in a pro level next year. That's not what pro does now. Like, you need to keep fucking pushing.
100%. No. Exactly what it is like driving standard, as you said, because even like preparing the gym the day before, okay, is a driving a standard for everyone. For you as S&C coach, because you want to be prepared, and for the players that comes in and they kick immediately in and on. And then, as you said, like, connection doesn't come like just the
just
day
because
after
of your role. Yeah.
Exactly. So you need to get, like, this relationship comes from like general normal question that you will ask to anyone else, because at the end of the day they are a human being, and that's what it is. And then, as you said, you get more confident, they get more confident, you can get more into their life, and then you can give them feedback. Even like, as you said, you want to become a pro, you need to do this, you need to do that. And then this is a funny story, because that happened to me this morning. Like, one of the younger player came to me and said, genuine quote, "Bro, I'm not improving." Like, okay, sit down, let's have a chat. Let's have a chat. So I show him all his data. I show him what we can potentially do, and then he start kicking like question about recovery, because I don't know what recovery to do. So you need to explain it. Fine, sit down here. So what are you doing at the moment? Write down here. Oh, I'm not doing anything. No. Okay, perfect. So let's start with small things. Have you tried to do any stretching? Have you tried to do what's your sleep routine? How long what's your normal average time per night that you're sleeping, and everything like that. And then generally they start realizing, okay, probably I'm doing what they asked me to do, but I'm not doing 100% of my job. Which is a job, but at the end of the day is also like one shot opportunity every single day. Once you miss that day, you write down from the calendar, and you got 364 days in front of you, and then potentially after that 364 days you don't have anything else. So are they renewing my contract? Don't know. But then sometimes, and this is the problem with the younger guy, so they don't get that potentially their dream will blow up after one season, because they don't renew the contract, because they are not aware of these things. And that's why we need to be there for them. Mm-hmm. And I'm not just saying S&C coach, but everyone else who is involved in this like multidisciplinary team needs to be there to advise them first, and then progressively get them a better understanding of where you are.
100%. And I think you're spot on with helping athletes realize that what we do in the gym isn't 100% of what they need to do. Mm-hmm. Like, we're probably 10%, maybe.
Oh, even less, potentially.
Of what they do. The other 90 to 95 is what they do outside of the gym. Our jobs, if we like really think about it, our job is to mitigate the 90 to 95% of what they do. Right? So,
correct.
Again, I have had experience with SRU, so I know roughly the contracts that they're in, and I know their limitations on things that they can't do. So already there, like, there's a guideline. Like, don't be stupid outside of the grounds, right? But then, like you said, recovery. What are you doing for it? Sleep hygiene. What are you doing for that? Are you taking care of, like, muscle soreness? Are you icing? Are you hot baths, saunas? Like, what else are we doing on top of that? And I think there's a really big step that we're missing, mostly on athlete recovery, because it's not, unless you've got the budget you don't have the facilities for it. Yeah, so it's not like an intuitive thing that session's over, I need to go see the physio. Or session's over, I need to go chill in the sauna. Or session's over, ice bath. It's like you kind of have to take ownership of your performance.
Exactly, 100%. And that's what potentially for S&C or sports scientists that will listen to this podcast, potentially the question that will come up in their mind, or the complaint will say, oh, but I don't have the budget, or I don't have the opportunity to do that, which I get it because I came through that. But there's a multiple way to educate the athlete that you got in front of you and the person that you got in front of you to even use like cheap method to recover. And that will lead to a 100%, a 50% improvement on their status from 0 to 100.
100%.
So sometimes you don't need like $10,000 or pounds, let's say, ice bath. You don't need it. You don't need that. You don't need a sauna. You don't need that. You need to take care of your body, and you got like a range of method, material, or whatever you want to do. You got from the cheapest version to the most expensive. Just try to educate first, and then you go through every single method.
100%. So this is a funny story on this. While I was going through university, obviously students don't have the biggest of budgets. So what I would do is on Sundays, I would go home and I would put like the freeze trays for the ice cubes. I would put like 5 of them in the freezer. After 2 hours, I would put them all in a bag, refill, go again, make a second bag, third bag, fourth bag. So during the week, I've got my ice baths sorted. And then I would always, so I'm a big fan of contrast. I feel amazing through contrast, so I will always do contrast. And then it's just a hot water bath. Dip it out, fill it with hot water. You've got somewhat the push and pull effect that you're wanting. And it's that little thing of like, again, I always say you're as limited as your imagination with this stuff.
Correct.
So it's like,
exactly.
When I'm thinking, and again, at university, I did extra stuff because I just loved being in the labs, loved the atmosphere. So like, we did a protocol of, we were really just fucking around in a heat chamber. So we did a baseline on a bike, incremental testing. Week 1, I got like 21 minutes. And then we tested cooling systems. So like ice towels on the neck, ice towels on major arteries. Week 2, we did hypoxia. We had a hypoxia mask on. Week 3, we had beetroot juice. And we just saw how different protocols impacted our performance, which was fascinating. Like the ice, I got 4 minutes extra on the incremental test. On beetroot, I got 2 minutes extra. Hypoxia, I got fucking 12 minutes because I was. But it's like those little things that, again, I like it because it's fun for me. But it's like athletes can experiment with this as well.
Yeah, but this came up, and other things that come up from what you just said. We need to experiment this sometimes. Not sometimes, pretty much most of the time. Like, I cannot prescribe to one of my athletes to use the sauna if I haven't been in that specific sauna and try on myself first, like, just get in 10 minutes. Then the next day, as you said, I'm going to go for 10 minutes, but with my heart rate on. So I'm going to see where my baseline heart rate change at the top. When I get out, how long did I take to recover from the high temperature and so on, and then multiple variation of exactly what you said that you did, and that's the point. So yes, we need to help them. They got like cheap version of everything, every single protocol and method, but also we need to know how we're feeling doing this kind of stuff, because if not, it's like just reading a book and pretend to know what will be the major effect. Which I'm not saying I'm gonna run tomorrow 42k just to say I'm gonna train a marathon athlete that is gonna win the Olympics. But small things you can do it. You can.
100%. Something I want to get your take on as well. So during my university, we did a lot with looking at oxygen as an energy system.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of, say, like our specific times for ATP, glycogen, oxidative, we were kind of looking at like when is the muscle depleted of oxygen? So we had Moxie devices, and then how quick can we raise that again, and how can we work on this? So I ended up like focusing a lot on pushing as hard as I can. So like do like a K on a rower machine, like raising my, I think the most I get, and I've actually got proof of this, was my heart rate reached 207 beats per minute. And then I wait until I go to like blue zone, and then I go again. As soon as I dip into that blue zone, I go again. And it's kind of working on that recovery system, like how quick can I come down to then push out the same effort, and can I reduce that time?
Yeah, it's quite interesting and funny that you just said that and asked about that, because I'm trying to read more and get more knowledge around what is the work that Andrew Asher has done with boxers and different
That was
other
one of
combat
my
athletes.
lecturers.
Yeah, so I'm quite I'm fascinating about his job, and especially the physiologists that work with Andrew Asher is quite intriguing and interesting. So listening to their podcast also is quite fascinating, how the deep physiology is around that kind of spectrum, because sometimes you think any sprint interval training, whatever you use it, is just driving performance instead. And this is like one of the key messages that he said during the last episode. It's like we're not driving just performance, we're driving recovery adaptation, which is the very turning point, I would say. And it's quite interesting, like all the calcium pathway that to kick in the muscle activation through mitochondria, how they recover the oxygen uptake and retake, desaturation, everything like that. It's quite interesting, and I'm diving into that. And because I'm diving into that, I'm trying to do the one of his protocol, which is a normal bike sprint. Try to capturing that with train red and everything like that on myself. And we go back to try on yourself what you want to try with your athletes. And I'm going to say out loud, sorry, it's fucking painful.
It is. It
because
sucks.
it's like maximal output. And if you never got, like, first of all, if you are not got used to that before, it's like painful since the start, but it will never get better. That's the problem. So your peak power will be better, your recovery will be better, but the pain feeling and the sensation that you got through your muscle and your lung is terrible, and that will never get better.
So his research, I was sitting in on when he was taking that. So he was Aberty at the same time I was. So that's how I got introduced to all this as well. He's a very smart guy, very smart.
Yeah, and like for everyone that like is listening us at the moment, they don't know Henry Asher or his podcast. That like have a look at that, because there's a tons of knowledge behind that 4 or 5 episode that are incredible and could potentially change your mind or way to approach conditioning for team athletes, boxers, fighters, or whatever it is, that change your mind for.
So I had a conversation with Brian Mann when he was across, and since then we've actually spoken quite a lot, and he's done an episode. It should actually be out by the time this one is. And he's the same, like he believes that conditioning should just be interval training on bikes.
Yeah,
it doesn't get much harder than that.
No, true. But again, I'm not gonna push that far, because like I get it, and there's always like a spectrum of things. But as long as your intent is maximal,
it's your intent.
That's definitely, yeah, exactly. That will drive your adaptation anyway. And we're not diving into zone 2 training because I don't want to go into that. But yeah, that's the thing. Intent.
So I'll get into it because I do see some benefits to it. But listen. So when I say zone 2, I don't mean like just walking on a treadmill. Like we need to get into zone 2 when we're going up steps. So stadium walks, stadium runs, stadium whatever you want to do, but like inclined. Like make that shit hard so your zone 2 can be hard.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. I'm probably nowadays biased a little bit more into this zone too, because I just finished reading this narrative review and another systematic review for general population, but it's like where I'm fit in, because I'm not a professional athlete. I'm not a triathlon athlete or a cycle. So that narrative review is quite interesting because very condensed, said that general population need to push harder, because if you got 4 hours per week to train, that 4 hours needs to be meaningful.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not the triathlon athlete that has got 24 hours, 50 hours per week to train, and then he can spend 3 hours into zone 2, because that leads his adaptation. It's like a recovery zone, even working around mitochondrial effect, blah, blah, blah. But he spend hours, not 20 minutes, that like my neighbor can do on a walk around here.
So with anything that I say, I always should preference and say there's context behind everything. Like, don't just hear something and apply. Like, you need to know the context behind to which that was applied. And it gets me onto another topic that we've been discussing. It's when scientists come out with these research papers, they're focusing on the population that they've got at hand, right? But that should also not be the standard for everyone. Like, if I am coaching, we'll make it the example easier. Sorry. So you have English under 20s. I have English, Scottish under 20s. Both same sport, both same level of performance. Everything measurable is the same. But we don't have the same athletes, right? So the results that you get, I shouldn't base my athletes on those results, because that's not who I have in. So it's this thing of like, even national standards are good to strive for, but that's not who you have in. Like, you have your own population in, you have your own athletes in, you have your own groups in. You need to standardize your KPIs, and then from that, have we improved, have we not?
Exactly. 100%. 100% agree with that. 100%, because at the end of the day, is the people that you got in front of you that you need to train, not like anyone else, or not the entire world. This is a good point, and we go back to, again, to the triathlon athlete that got 50 hours per day, or as you said, the England under 20 or the Scottish under 20, that which potentially got two different training schedules, time on feet and whatever it is. Or again, to the professional athlete or the semi-pro amateur rugby athlete that wants to push harder, and that's it. Like, exactly, you need to contextualize or just get your contest better, and then you can get the best
You've
solution.
just said something really interesting in passing, and I kind of want you to dive into a little bit further on that. And it's the importance of time on feet.
Yeah. Sometimes we underestimate the importance of the pro and the cons of time on feet. Sometimes. This not just for, I would say, conditioning or metabolic training, but also like for the normal joint stress that you can potentially get in general, which again is different between me standing or just watching the rugby session of my guys and them stay on feet for 75 minutes, having collision, sprinting, running, and then again, or then topping up with any kind of on-fit conditioning compared to any off-fit conditioning. And that's depend also by their body weight or their position and everything like that. So yeah, the on-fit or the time on feet is something like we need seriously like consider a little bit more in the context. And I will definitely dive more into the front five, let's say, for rugby. Like, you got people that players that are around 120, 125 to 145 kilograms, and they need to perform on that pitch for 50 minutes, 60 minutes, sometimes 40 minutes. That's fine, but you need to be the most efficient possible with, especially with this heavy guy on feet, and then potentially lead some other off-feet conditioning or off-feet power outside from their session. Be also mindful that all the time on feet will lead, especially for this heavy guy again, to mechanical load, more joint stress, more like everything, tendon loadings, that which potentially sometimes you see these heavy guys snapping their Achilles like that during a scrum, and then you say they just not moving. No, they expressing the max force possible in a snap of time, and they snap their Achilles because they were too much time on feet. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think it's something that not a lot of people consider as important, because like, they play the sport anyway, so why do we need to consider that? I mean, well,
Yeah.
if they've had a brutal week and they're going into a brutal game, we kind of need to
consider
align our
that.
ducks.
Yeah, 100%. Also, like, even for the wealth and well-being on a long term, let's say, because especially if your club want to invest more in your academy, let's say, yeah, it's fine during the under 16 to 18, 20s, you try to push hard, but then for the longevity of this athlete, you need to consider all these individual parameters. Because if you think that this athlete is a good investment, and you think it will be the best prop that you can get, then you need to consider that this prop needs to stay with you and performing as much as you can for 10 to 12 years, let's say. And you want to be the best for scrumming, want the best for sprinting and everything like that. So that's the thing.
100%. You mentioned at the start that you're looking, and you've done a bit of Python for sports science. How did you integrate that into your package?
Again, I go back to my nerdy side of my personality. And normally it's like I would say everything started like working with Excel for training monitoring, training load calculation and everything like that. Back when I was at the start of my career, I don't have access to any like fancy technology. So the only thing that I got was my laptop, which I pay for that, and the Excel subscription, which I paid for that. And I create my own database, collecting my data, create my first dashboard and everything like that to show what we were doing, to show what we can potentially do and what the result that we got. And then I understood that Excel is not enough, or you can use it as much as, but if you want to go more in deep with stats and everything like that, then you can dive into like more serious program, which potentially be like Python, MATLAB, and everything like that, SPSS. And Python not always, but I like Python because first of all, it's simple and it's really catchy, because it's like writing for us. It's like you write a line of code as you write like a page of your notes or paper book. Like it's the same thing, except for some kind of command, but it's not like major things. So once you get into that process, everything get like a little bit easier. Obviously, I'm not at that level to say, okay, I'm gonna program a full website tomorrow for the company that I work for. No, it's not like that. But I can generally run stats. I can generally create something. Like I'm now able to create a small web app that can produce immediately results from data results. So that's how I got into that. It will be a long process, and I think it will be a never-ending process if I want to stick with that. But again, restarting from the very start, when I describe myself like an hybrid role, what I think is my long-term goal would be become the head of S&C for a good club, like a good prestigious club. And once I will got there, I need to be aware and conscious to know at least 80%, I would say, of everything of the other roles. So let's say I'm the head of S&C. I need to have knowledge for the 80% of the sports science stuff that my sports scientist, my leader sports scientist, does and will do.
Mm-hmm.
So then the 20% that he will come up is from his own experience, from more in-deep experience than me, because he spent more time on that, is something that will add value to me, to my team, and everything like that. And that will be the same for my assistant, my colleague, which is more expert in conditioning or speed or gym. I don't know, like everything like that. So the idea for me is, if I want to become one of the best head of S&C, I need to know at least 85% of all the other stuff. And then the rest, they will do it for me.
So a couple of months ago, had a conversation with my mentor, Ron McKeefrey. And so one thing that you have to understand is, when you're speaking to your mentors, you can't take what they say offensively. You have to realize that they have the best in their mind for you. So the way that you should take it as constructive feedback. So he said that I'm never going to be a specialist at one zone, but because of the podcast and everything I do, I know a lot about everything to have the conversation with them. So it's this idea that you're exactly saying, is like knowing a little bit about a lot so that you can hang in the conversation and know what's happening. And it's important because, again, I talk a lot about being a generalist. So like if you're good at a little bit of everything, your programs are going to be solid. If you know a lot about something and not much about everything else, there's areas that you're going to lack in your program. And like, I know for a fact that when he's choosing to hire people, he's choosing people that have that one thing that he doesn't have. So like, that's how he makes his hiring decisions. It's like, okay, I'm needing Excel. He loves Excel. I'm okay with Excel, but I'm not good as Zach Cook. He gets Zach Cook in. I'm amazing at programming, but Coach Fink is even better. I'll bring Fink in. So it's like that's how you should, and it's exactly what you're saying. That's how you should hire.
Exactly. Like, be exactly what you said, and then my mind goes immediately through the book Range. And be a generalist is better than be a specialist sometimes. And I would say, especially for our job, like in S&C world, it's better to be like that, because there's a lot of knowledge around the world, and you cannot be the most expert in one thing. If not, you just do research and do the research for that kind of things, which is fine, but it's a completely different job. And if you want to be like the best head of S&C, head of performance, and cope with all the demands, so yes, you need to be a generalist. You need to be, yeah.
I think what people don't understand is, at that point too, you're not just a coach, you're kind of a CEO. Like, you have to manage people, you have to manage budgets, you have to team meetings, head of performance meetings. Like, there's so much that you have to be on top of, that you can't focus solely on, oh, I'm going to make the best program I can make.
100%. 100%. Yeah.
What's one piece of advice that you would give new strength coaches or coaches wanting to become part of this industry?
Wow, this is a tricky one. So first of all, I would say, be aware that this industry, we are nearly there to be saturated. There's potentially too many S&C, not the same amount of jobs, and the kind of job that are now available are not as paid as much as was probably 20 years ago. So first of all, you need to have like huge amount of passion for what you want to do and for what you're doing. You really need to get the basic straight on, and again, not go immediately into the fancy stuff. Commit a lot, and enjoy. Because at the end of the day, and that's what I think, and I can say that because I went through like even a tougher period in which I really didn't enjoy where I was at or what I was doing. If you don't enjoy doing this job, it's not your job, because the pressure is on every single time. The working schedule is completely a mess. So you start working at 6 and you can finish at work at 9, and
That's a normal
you
day.
need to shut up. That's what it is. That's the demand of the game. You need to be aware that you're going to work weekends. And if you want to have family with this routine, it's going to be a mess. And then you have to commit to another story too, your family too. Yeah. So this is probably the feedback that I will give to younger SNC now.
Yeah.
And that's potentially is rude. It's not the most polite way to say it, but
I think
it's what
so.
the reality is.
I'll tell you a true story. When I was doing my gym qualifications, this was just gym qualifications. This wasn't S&C or anything. My head lecturer said to me, for the first couple of years, you're going to be a glorified cleaner, right? Because like you're cleaning racks, you're cleaning the gym floor, you're making sure that your workspace is clean and tidy. And again, it goes back to that professionalism. Everything that I have in my gym, clean. I walk in, see dirt, clean it. If at the end of the night there's a mess everywhere, clean it. But then what I always say as well is like you can actually use that to progress career. So like this is what I did at UW with Coach Mac, and I made sure that every job that I got, I did it to the best of my ability. The week after, I got more responsibilities. And the week after that, I was taking return to plays myself. At the end of that, I was given the other interns jobs to do. So it's like if you have that switch of like do everything the best you can, you're going to get more and you're going to push further. But you are going to have to do the sucky jobs first. And S&C isn't a glorious and glamified job. Like,
no.
Like at UW, I would wake up at 4 a.m., get to the facility by like 5:30, 6. Our first session was at 7. I would spend the first half hour just making sure that every equipment was out, every testing device was out, everything that we needed was set up. And then from there, I would stay till about 5, 6 every night. And I would just jump in between PTs, nutritionists, ATs, and all that stuff. Because like I just wanted to learn as much as possible. So it's kind of having that thing of expecting it to be a shit job. And that's what you love about it.
Exactly. 100%. And is it a good way to progress? You show
100%.
up, even if, like during the shitty job, that you are committing to that. Yeah. 100%.
You also get to see the coaches on different lights.
100%, exactly.
Thank you so much for coming on, Filippo. It was a pleasure having you on and talking.
Thank you so much. It was really enjoyable. I hope all the listeners will enjoy too our chat. And thank you so much for having me again.
No worries. If you can tell people where they can find you and hopefully reach out to you.
Yeah. I'm not a massive into social media, but definitely I got Instagram. So my Instagram is Filippo Nason. Completely exactly what it is. Where I share my life in general. So it's not very professional. So yes, there's bits of professional stuff, but also like my general life. Drop a text, and I will be more than happy to reply.
Perfect. Appreciate you so much.
Thank you so much, Manny.
Peace.
Thank you.